الله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا وإمامنا وحبيبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I praise Allah Almighty and I send prayers and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his noble family, righteous companions, and all those that follow them with right guidance until the day of judgment. Ameen. Glory be to you, O Allah. No knowledge have we except that which you have taught us. You are indeed the all-knowing, the all-wise. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's nice to be with you again. After a small hiatus, we are back, inshallah, to speak about Islam, the misunderstood religion. And today I want to talk about a few general aspects of the religion, not one in specific, but a few general ones about Islam, about the Sharia, that is frequently misunderstood. And all the while we will inshallah mention some of the important characteristics. Number one, and this is very important, is that it is entirely, genuinely, bona fidely divine. Now this may seem kind of axiomatic. Everyone knows what that means, right? Axiomatic? No? Means it's self-evident. It may seem self-evident and obvious. Of course, yeah, it's from Allah, it's divine. It's completely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not that obvious. It's not that obvious, especially to non-Muslims. And this is frequently an aspect which is misunderstood. And this is because the whole concept that we actually possess something that is completely, entirely, genuinely, wholly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something quite unique. Because most other people think that, yeah, they have something from God, but not entirely, not completely. And that affects the way they look and perceive whatever it is that they possess. So if we take Christians, for example, yes, they say the Bible is the Word of God, but they know that the Bible has a lot of mistakes. They know there are mistakes. They know it's a historical fact that some verses were taken out and others were put in. So the fact that there is corruption is a well-known fact. That you cannot change. You cannot change history. It happened. It's happening. Right? So what you can change is the perception. Okay, if that's the case, then the way we look at this book, the way we look at the religion, will kind of tweak, right? So they might not look at it as entirely wholly from God, right? There are things that we can change and amend, right? It's not completely from God, so we don't have to take it completely literally. And this is why in Christianity the Catholics and the Protestants look at the Bible differently, right? The very literal interpretation of the Bible was introduced with the Protestants in the early 16th century, and that slowly started developing. So when we say Islam as a religion, as a message, the law, the Sharia, we talk about it as being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, genuinely, divinely, completely. It's not something we're playing around with. It's not something that we take with jest. That, oh yeah, okay, this is partially from Allah and partially from us, and we can just play around with it as we desire. No, it is, the source of it is Allah Azza wa Jal. So when we talk about Islam being misunderstood, one of the main reasons it is misunderstood is because A lot of non-Muslims don't understand that we are saying that this book is entirely from Allah. There are no contradictions. There are no changes. It's not something that we play around with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Prophet Musa alayhi salam, when he talks about At-Tawrah, he tells him what? He says, فَخُذْهَا بِقُوَّةٍ. Take it with power and strength. At-Tawrah. وَأْمُرْ قَوْمَكَ يَأْخُذُوا بِأَحْسَنِهَا. And command your people to take the best of it. He tells Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam, Ya Yahya, خُذِ الْكِتَابَ بِقُوَّةٍ. Take the book with strength. Right? It's not something to play around with. Oh yeah, this is the book of God. Kind of. No, there's no kind of in Islam. This is divinely, completely, entirely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a very different perception. It seems obvious to you and me because we take it for granted. But for others, it's a different concept. Oh, okay, so this is to be taken seriously, right? It means we cannot just play around with it and just, according to our whims say, oh yeah, we'll implement this, but this part we'll leave out. Oh, this page in Surah Al-Ankabut, no need. There's no such thing as no need. Or, okay, this we'll put aside, or this. That's not the way it works. It's a very different conception, right? That said, it may give rise to another misconception, which is that, okay, if that's the case, so your Islam is completely immutable, unchangeable, strict, and inflexible. Is that correct? That's what they say.
Then after that, there'll be another question coming in.
And then another question, and another question, and another question.
Is going to them, why is it that you're being separated into Shia, Sunni, this and that? If you say that book is...
Okay, that's a good question.
That's what is happening now.
That's a good question.
How they attack you. That's how they ask you now.
Right.
You say that your book is perfect.
Fine. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But for now, okay, and you can remind me if I forget. But for now, let us just deal with the first point, which is that it is completely, genuinely, entirely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not our input. This is not my input. This is not the Prophet's input, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had his own input, things may have been a little bit different. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any input into the Quran, nor into the Sunnah, in terms of it being wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We interpret that also as being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is this important when we talk about Islam as a religion and when we talk about Islam as a law? Because when we talk about it as a religion and we say that it is completely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means that I don't have the liberty to just understand things completely the way I would like to, according to my whims, according to my caprice. Okay? This is going on now. You said, why is it happening? Because there are people who are trying to interpret things that way. They themselves do not understand that this is not something that you just interpret according to your own whims. And it also means that whatever is in it is from God, and we claim that God is all wise. God is omniscient, He's all knowledgeable. So He didn't leave things just for our own whims. When you talk to non-Muslims who don't know about Islam, and you tell them that Islam is a way of life, so it is not just a religion. It's not just a message that we restrict to the surah or the masjid or the home. Rather, it's a complete and entire and comprehensive way of life. This is also a very important characteristic that would not make sense if we did not combine it with the fact that it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if I come and say, it is a way of life and I am following it, then they have the liberty to say, how can you follow a way of life that is 1,400, over 1,400 years old? Why do you insist on living in the 7th century? We're in 2019, according to the Masihi calendar. I like how the Malaysians call it the Masihi, right? The Gregorian calendar. According to the Islamic calendar, we are in which century? 15th century, 1440, right? Why do you insist on living 1,400 years back? We are now in this day and age, we're in the 3rd millennium. Okay, again, back to the Gregorian. In the 15th century Hijri. So when you couple the fact that this is a way of life whose origin and source is divine, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. It's not that I insist on following a way of life that is anachronistic, it's something that belongs in a previous age. No, this is from Allah. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, not to be followed only then, but to be followed until the Day of Judgment, right? That's the only way it makes sense. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. You're following a way of life of people who lived then. If that's the case, then don't live with us. That would be the understanding. Go and live, somewhere like the Amish. Okay, find a certain mountain. Okay, and live with your camels and your cattle and your things. Not in the 21st century. Things are different. Why do they think that? Because they don't understand the fact that no, this is not me, this is not Prophet Muhammad's book, this is the word of God. The source is divine, the origin is divine, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So something so obvious to you and me is not that obvious to others, okay? And we need to explain that. That said, don't we believe in the previous books? Isn't their source also Allah? It is. Allah is the source of the Injil. Allah is the source of the Torah. But this was corrupted beyond any possible rectification. Otherwise, we would say that yes, that source is divine, and therefore why do you not follow it? The only reason is because it was corrupted beyond rectification, and the Quran was sent later, and each book that was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated the one before, okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees what He wills out of His wisdom, okay? So first of all, the divine source, the way of life, the laws. Similar argument. You're following laws that are anachronistic, they belong in a different age. That would make sense if we said that this is not divine. But once you explain that the origin is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it all fits together. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this message and this law not to be followed only by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the companions, but until the end of time. Fine. It's logical up till now. However, especially when we talk about laws, no law can withstand, or set of laws, let us say, can withstand the immense changes that occur over time in the way of life. So, what laws do you have that are suitable to our day and age? Life has changed a lot, has it not? How can you claim that Islam and its set of rules and laws is good and valid until the day of judgment. How can it be valid for such a long time? Tell me. Yes, brothers and sisters. Brother.
Because the source is divine.
Because the source is divine. We agree. Can there be some changes?
No.
No. Can there be some modifications in some places, some laws, some rules? No. Okay.
Because there is no true judgment between us. Allah is not going to judge them.
Okay.
Allah is different and
Fine. Fine. So we all agree that Islam is immutable. Correct? Cannot be changed. We cannot play around with it. Otherwise we would also deviate. But we also claim that it is flexible and it can withstand the test of time. How can it be both immutable yet flexible?
The flexibility will be, it depends how the other person understands it. Because when you understand and what I understand,
that's interpretation. That's what the brother was talking about. What you understand and what I understand. Are there different interpretations? There are.
Excuse me, like they said, for instance, what I know, if my imam know more than me, it is better that I should follow my imam.
Okay.
So this
You mean the madhab?
No, it's not a must-have. Like for instance, within this community, this person is the
Okay. The religious leader or okay, imam. Okay.
So I have to follow him.
Okay.
So he is.
I mean that depends, okay? That depends on what we're talking about. But it's close to the concept of the madahib. But what I'm looking for now is, explain to me how it can be flexible yet immutable. Changing somewhat yet the word immutable cannot change, not changing. Sorry, I figured that's also well known, right?
Actually,
yes, I'm looking for a one-word answer. There's actually a one-word answer for this question. It might be a little bit difficult, but it's okay. Let's think about it. Yes, brother. Rukhsa. Good guess, but not exactly. Okay, so there's such a thing called rukhsa that does speak to the flexibility of the religion, right?
What is rukhsa?
What is rukhsa? You tell me. You speak Arabic, brother.
Sure, no.
So rukhsa here is a certain allowance, a certain exception in certain cases. So the flexibility of the Sharia is such that when you and I are traveling, I don't have to pray Dhuhr 4 rakat. I don't have to pray Asr 4 rakat. What I do is I combine the salah, right? This is the flexibility of the religion. In fact, if there's anything that has flexibility, it is prayer. You're not able to pray standing up? Pray sitting down. You can't sitting down? Lying down. You can't lying down? On your side. You can't on your side? Just use your eyes. Subhanak ya Rabb. No excuse not to pray. These are all exceptions. Exceptions to those who cannot. This is the flexibility of the deen. So while we say there are no exceptions for salah, salah has to be done, right? On time, properly, but it's flexible in the sense that maybe the way you do it will change based on your physical ability. This is rukhsa. It speaks to the flexibility of the deen, that's correct. But I'm talking about flexibility over time. Let me make it more specific. And of course, this is with salah. You can say the same about so many other things. This is the mercy of the Sharia. Allah Azza wa Jal says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرِ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرِ. Allah intends for you ease. He doesn't want difficulty for you. يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم. Allah wants to make things easy for you. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. And the human being was indeed created weak. But what about flexibility over time? How can Allah adapt and amend and conform
It's maqasid,
with time?
intention,
Maqasid is a very big word, sister. Very big word. But okay, you're kind of getting there.
I think Quran was created on the base of the human's behavior, like and human's desires, and for example, if you look nowadays law is actually protecting the government, but when it comes for Islam, when it comes for zina, yeah. For example, if someone have a wife and if his wife is cheating on him, and in Quran saying that like it's kind of a death penalty over there, so no one will like it. So it means that even during a time, it's like working on a feeling of the people. Like it's I don't know how.
Okay, let me kind of bring it closer to where we need to be. Let's put it this way. We do have something called the four madahib, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have something called the four madahib? Why do I need the four madahib?
Because different.
We said it's not changing, it's the same.
No.
Why is there such a thing as madhab al-Hanafi, madhab al-Shafi, madhab al-Maliki, madhab al-Hanbali? What for? What were they doing? How did four different schools of thought arise in the fiqh? Because they were practicing something called,
ijtihad.
thank you sister, ijtihad.
Oh, it's that.
Ijtihad. What is ijtihad? Shoaib, can you tell me? You know what it means. I think you do, but you're just not sure. Right? Something like that. You have an idea. So what is ijtihad? Ijtihad means that a scholar of Islam with a proper foundation in the Quran and Sunnah gives his opinion, his interpretation about a certain legal verdict. This is called ijtihad. So Imam Abu Hanifa did ijtihad, Imam al-Shafi'i, Malik, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. They had their ijtihad about certain issues where differences arose in interpretation. Ijtihad is what makes the Islamic Sharia a flexible one that is capable of conforming to the needs of the time. Ijtihad is not a bad word. It's a big word, it's not a bad one. It's a very good one. Because without ijtihad, we would not be able to talk about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated in the context of modern times. It would be just precisely what was existing at the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and we can't go beyond that. But that's not the Sharia. The Sharia is flexible because there are aspects of the deen, okay, and the set of rules and regulations in Islam that change with time. And there are aspects that are immutable and unchangeable. As an example, when we talk about something like the prohibition of alcohol, this is not something that is changing with time. We cannot say, oh, that was then, this is now. Right? We're in the 21st century, so it is halal. This is something which is well known and established in the Sharia, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited for all time. And by the way, its effect on people doesn't change. So the way it affected people's minds at the time of the Prophet ﷺ is exactly the same now. Same with hijab. One cannot say, oh no, that was a different time. In the 21st century, we don't need the hijab. Women are different nowadays. You might say we need the hijab even more now as opposed to before, with all of the fitna that exists. But as an example, I was kind of surprised when I heard this from a Christian priest. So I had a talk about Islam in a it wasn't a church, it was a school, a Christian school in the States. And then they showed me the school and the students and so on. And interestingly, in their office they had a nice big picture of who is believed to be Mother Mary, right? Maryam alayhi salam. Okay, in her hijab. Okay, Christian hijab nonetheless, right? So afterwards, when I saw the children, the girls running around, and some of them maybe of teenage years, okay, no hijab, maybe even almost like a mini skirt. I asked the priest, she was a female. So I said, I saw that the picture of Mary, she's all covered and stuff, but the girls in the school, they look different, they dress differently. So she started explaining to me basically that no, the scholars, and they talked about the issue and the covering of the hair and so on. So they said, no, this is a different time. So for all practical purposes, she was telling me that their scholars did ijtihad and said that the hijab is no longer required, right? That's not the case in Islam, right? So there are things in Islam that have been legislated that are immutable, that are not variable, okay? And there are other things that may be modifying and subject to ijtihad, whereby it would change with time, and it depends on the time. This is not for the laymen and laywomen to give their opinion on, what is flexible and what is inflexible, and just giving their opinions haphazardly. This is the realm of scholars. This is the realm of scholars and the realm of people who have the capacity to do ijtihad, which is not anybody. Ijtihad is not something that anyone can do. It's something that is reserved for people who are very scholarly, who have a very comprehensive idea about the Sharia and all of the legal injunctions, whether it is in the Quran or in the Sunnah. The verses, the ayat of the Quran and the ahadith that talk about al-ahkam, the jurisprudence, okay, the fiqh. But in a nutshell, it is ijtihad which makes this sharia applicable, as we say, for all time and place. We always say that this sharia, this deen, is applicable for all times and all places. How? That's how. Because of ijtihad. And there are modern issues now that Imam Abu Hanifa had no opinion on, because it didn't exist at the time of Abu Hanifa. Nor Imam Malik, nor Imam Shafi'i, nor Imam Ahmad. Didn't exist at the time of Prophet Muhammad. Well, what was the fatwa of the Prophet ﷺ? It didn't exist at the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Ijtihad is not something, again, sometimes maybe Muslims who have not really gone deep into this issue, they feel that maybe, this is a tool by which people would change the deen, God forbid. No, that's not what it's about, my brothers and sisters. In fact, as Imam Shafi'i says in a Risala, he makes it very clear that ijtihad is part and parcel of the deen itself. And he gives the example of the Qibla. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Noble Quran that when we pray, we have to face the Qibla, right? How do you determine the Qibla? Did Allah tell you the Qibla in the Quran? I mean, we know what the Qibla is. But did He tell you what the Qibla is here in Malaysia? Did He tell you what the Qibla is somewhere else? Where is the Qibla? Does it tell me in the Quran? Does it tell me in the Sunnah? He told you to face the Qibla. How do I determine it? This is ijtihad. This is where the human reasoning part comes in. I have to face the Qibla when I pray. How do I determine it? This is a very simple example. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, He talks about the scholars and He talks about al-istinbat. لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. There's something called istinbat, which is deduction. This deduction is done, by the way, I kind of went on a tangent. I didn't want to talk about ijtihad, but we can, it's all inshallah within the scope of what we're talking about. But ultimately, this ijtihad is what allows the deen, the sharia, the set of rules and regulations to be good for all time and all place. Can there be ijtihad in aqeedah? Who is Allah? What is He like? Who we worship? No. Are there some differences of opinion in matters of aqeedah? Yes, there are. In some matters, not in the very basic about whether Allah is one and tawheed and so on, but there were some differences in interpretation that occurred in history. Yes, there are. Okay, but in the furu'a, not in the usul, in the things which we can consider secondary and not primary, right? But this is a very important aspect of the deen. So we do have the flexibility, but we also have that which keeps it immutable, unchangeable, genuine and divine, and from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we can talk about the other aspect, which is also very important from a slightly different angle, which is that when you look at everything else which is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can see the havoc that was wrought by human ideologies that are continuously variable. Take a look at, maybe we go out of the realm of religion somewhat now, but now we're looking at Islam as a set of laws, as a sharia. When you look at the ideologies that were adopted, different ideologies, some of them have to do with politics, economics, philosophy. A lot of these ideologies, since their provenance was not Allah, their origin was not divine, they wrought havoc on human society. Take the example of socialism and communism. Destruction, absolute destruction for decades, right? The whole battle between capitalism and communism, right? It took so many human lives. Communism and the dictatorship and the hegemony that followed and ensued, it was destructive, right? How many people had to be sacrificed in order to realize that this human ideology in the end was not about guidance but about misguidance, because its source is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even capitalism now, look at the misery that has resulted from a lot of these man-made ideologies and women-made ideologies, not only men and women. These ideologies because their source is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, necessarily they went astray. And necessarily you will find that Islam is the healthy balance between all of these things. So if communism and socialism talk about the importance of collective ownership, right? Capitalism focuses on the importance of private ownership, right? What does Islam say? Neither one. Islam talks about the importance of both. The importance of private ownership as well as the importance of collective ownership. As Islam talks about the importance of the society, taking care of the poor and the needy, legislating something like zakat and charity, but at the same time, this should not be taken as an excuse to rob people of their own earnings, to rob people of their own achievements, property, intellectual property. In communism and socialism, it's all the purview of the state. If the state deems your intellect property of the state, that's all. You become property of the state, and your intellect and your brain and your intellectual achievements, they all become property of the state. You become nationalized, you become national property. Is that what Islam teaches? Absolutely not. Islam gives us that healthy balance between the two because of the divine origin. All of the laws that were drafted by human beings, is there anything that has been implemented since time immemorial and has not changed? Human beings change as they please. And we see that now. It's very dangerous, and maybe we'll come to it inshallah when we talk about a little bit more about human rights. Look at what's happening now. All kinds of things are being done according to what? To the whim and the caprice of human beings. So what human beings deem acceptable today becomes enshrined in law. One of the most salient examples, I'm sure any of you can tell me. Can you give me an example of something that was just haram yesterday, not according to Muslims, but according to human beings in general, and now is halal? Well, the most obvious example, right? Homosexuality. Freedom of sexual orientation, right? This is freedom. Okay? In the beginning it was LG. You know LG washers? I think it's called Life is Good, right? That's what it means, LG. Life is good, as opposed to Samsung or something. But then it became LGB. Slowly it's changing. And then it became LGBT, right? Not anymore. There are more letters. Each time a new letter is added. I think it's LGBTI or Q, one of them. QI, IQ. IQ sounds better, IQ. 6 letters. Tomorrow it'll be 8, 10. Where does it stop, my brothers and sisters? This is what happens when you leave human beings to legislate as they see fit. Why was it not allowed then? Why was it egregious and repulsive then and completely acceptable now? Is it because human beings are making progress? Or is it about regress?
Technology became advanced.
Technology is one thing. We're progressing in things and we're regressing in so many others. Right? And technology itself, is it completely progress? It's a bain and a boon, isn't it? A lot of the technology is destructive. A lot of the technology is being used to destroy. Because its origin is not Allah. Because it's not being used in conformity with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded. The issue of homosexuality is just one example. Even the hijab. You remember recently in France, a sister was on the beach, but she was in her burkini, if I'm not mistaken, right? A modern Islamic bikini, if you will. Doesn't sound right, but okay, burkini, right? So she was well covered. So the policeman stopped her. Excuse me, you're violating the law on the beach. This is not the way you're supposed to be dressed. Interestingly enough, go back 50 years to the same beach, just a different policeman because that guy probably died 50 years later. But the same beach 50 years back, when the lady was dressed in something maybe not as revealing as a bikini, the policeman stopped her as well and said, excuse me, this is too revealing. You're violating the law. Same beach, same country, just 50 years back, the policeman is stopping her for being too revealing. 50 years later, he's stopping her because she's too dressed. She's too concealing. Allahu Akbar. This is the problem. When everything is just subject to human whim and human caprice. These are not things that change or should change. Is it progress or regress? One point after another. What is halal today becomes haram tomorrow. What is haram today becomes halal tomorrow. That's not what the deen does. The ijtihad in our deen comes with issues that are modern, where there is not a specific or clear legislation. Then the ulama will examine the evidence. The sister mentioned maqasid, will examine the maqasid and try to legislate based on what they see is in line and in conformity with what Allah commands in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and the higher objectives of the Sharia. What does the Sharia require? And we know, and we should always remember, that the Sharia in its entirety is about mercy, is about increasing and multiplying the masalih. Multiplying the masalih, that which brings about welfare to people, to the community. And is all about reducing and trying to eliminate al-mafasid, whatever may corrupt or harm. This is the ultimate objective of the Sharia. Multiplying the masalih and trying to reduce the mafasid. And legislation will be as such. But that is with regards to things which are, as we said, prone or subject to ijtihad, not to the basics of the deen which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided for us out of His wisdom and out of His mercy. And this is how we explain the issue of having the different madahib, the different interpretations. This is not necessarily disunity. And we know the famous saying, you attribute it to the Prophet, peace be upon him, though its authenticity is in question, which is that ikhtilafu ummati rahma. We hear this a lot, right? The ikhtilaf of the ummah is a mercy. Well, not completely. Again, we're not saying, because there is the authenticity of its attributing it to the Prophet ﷺ is in question. So, is all of the ikhtilaf of the ummah rahman? No, of course not. A lot of the ikhtilaf is adab, when it causes disunity. But the ikhtilaf about some of the issues that concern the fiqh and the jurisprudence is indeed a mercy. Because you cannot require all Muslims in the ummah to follow exactly one madhab that does not in any way see any kind of differences of opinion. No, there are differences of opinion. In fiqh, there's plenty of difference of opinion. Plenty. And this is part of the rahmah of the Sharia. In the sense that you cannot require all to follow just one way. With regards to what? With regards to some of the what we call the detailed aspects of the jurisprudence, the secondary aspects, al-furu', not al-usul. Clear? And this is why it was the wisdom of Imam Malik when the Khalifa wanted him to put away a system which is his madhab, the madhab of Imam Malik, and to make it obligatory upon all. Al-Imam Malik refused. For that specific reason. Because he doesn't want it to become the one and only way. This is the wisdom and the tajarrud of Imam Malik. His honesty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his sincerity. Otherwise, who doesn't want his ideas, his way, his ijtihad to be the one followed by all, right? I want everyone to follow me. The nafs, right? The human nafs, this is what it would usually require. Imam Malik was above this. So he said, no, this is not correct. This is not the way to do it. So there are these differences. But this is out of the mercy and the flexibility of this deen. I'll end it there inshallah, and if there are any questions or comments, go ahead.
So,
He beat you to it, so you kept on smiling to your friend, should I, shouldn't I? He beat you to it. Yes, brother.
sorry. So, should we acknowledge the four sects or madhab as to be followed independently or separately?
What do you mean?
Suppose some people, those who follows a particular madhab,
Yes.
Hanafi, they think they must follow all the
Everything.
opinions by Hanafi. And those who follow Imam Shafi,
Yeah.
they think that they must follow.
It is well known that we have this problem, unfortunately. The madahib are looked at as the whole religion, as opposed to being an interpretation. Okay, this is very important to remember. And therefore you have what is called a ta'assub. You have fanaticism when it comes to al-madahib. Okay? So, and this is completely contrary to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands. On the day of judgment, He's not going to ask you, why did you not follow Abu Hanifa? Or why did you not follow Ash-Shafi'i? No. The whole idea is that I am trying to follow what Allah Azza wa Jal commanded me. But as I am not a scholar in the Sharia, so I am following this madhab. However, without ta'assub, without fanaticism, and that also means that if I discover and if it is made clear to me that the opinion of Abu Hanifa or Shafi'i or Malik on this particular issue is weak, I take another opinion. Believe me, you will not be held accountable. Why did you not follow all of the madhab? Why did you take this from Shafi'i and this from... No. You will not be held accountable for that. Your goal is not to follow Abu Hanifa completely. Your goal is to follow the Prophet ﷺ completely. And it has been established that some opinions in the madahib concerning certain issues are weak and do not have evidence. In that case, I follow the evidence. No problem. The rest of the things you're following Imam Malik, great. Or you're following Ahmad ibn Hanbal, fine. But if it's been clearly established that this is weak, this is contrary to what the Prophet ﷺ may have said, your Imam told you otherwise. What do I mean by that? It means the Imam you are supposedly following said. Because every one of the Imams said, if a clear, authentic hadith comes to you, take my opinion and chuck it out. My opinion doesn't make sense if it is in contradiction to something clear and authentically mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ. So we have this problem, unfortunately. Okay? And in history it existed. You know that a person of the Hanafi madhab may not marry his daughter to someone of the Shafi'i. That's the way it was. There was a time when they wouldn't pray behind each other. It continues to cause problems in Muslim minority countries, where Muslims are minority. In the West, in the East, the Hanafi masjid, the Shafi'i masjid, it continues until now. Division continues to create division. Even though, subhanAllah, we know the famous story when Imam al-Shafi'i went and he prayed Fajr at the grave of Imam Abu Hanifa, right? In the Shafi'i fiqh, there's something called Qunut in Fajr, right? Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't have it. Great. So Imam al-Shafi'i did not pray the Qunut. And his followers were like, what's going on? Why didn't you pray al-Qunut? He said, out of respect to the man in this grave. Subhanallah. Who has this understanding of the followers of Imam al-Shafi'i? Very few. Oh, he didn't pray Qunut. Your Fajr is invalid. Khalas. Pray Fajr again. Or maybe, God forbid, oh, you're not a Muslim. Maybe takfir based on... He didn't pray the Qunut. He didn't find a problem. His Fajr was valid. And he did it not because, he did it purely out of respect. Subhanallah. We don't have this understanding today. If we did, things would be different. That said, these are the lay people, and the lay people, what is obligatory upon them is to follow, say, a certain madhab. Okay? Because we are not mujtahideen, we don't have the capacity for ijtihad. But there is another category that Imam Shatibi mentions, but that is with respect to students of knowledge who are capable of studying the authenticity of the different evidence that is provided on a certain issue. And in that respect, that student of knowledge can take an opinion that is different from the madhab, let's say, that he follows. But he will not do ijtihad for the rest of the ummah. This is like a third category for the students of knowledge, which is called al-ittiba'. But that is a person who does have the capacity to study the different pieces of evidence in a particular issue. Does that answer your question, brother?
Yes, I got your answer.
But
I want to raise another question.
can we just go to someone else and then, if need be? Yes, brother.
2018.
Yeah.
Come up with a special way how to breed meat, not animals, using cells. Using
Using cells to make meat.
They're breeding it.
They're breeding meat.
You know what it? Yes.
What is it called?
The GMO, genetically modified.
Yes.
Genetically modified?
But not on animals.
GM?
Oh.
O. What's O? Forgot that part. Or maybe just modified, genetically.
So they're taking the cells and they are breeding into meat.
Well, I mean, a lot of the food is genetically modified. Are you sure that they're breeding it? They're using the cells to... Okay, all right, okay.
So my main question is, at the moment, is our scholars looking into it?
These are the types of things where scholars need to come and do ijtihad.
That's what
Precisely. Mind you, in a lot of the modern contemporary issues, the ijtihad will need to be multifaceted. Because it may not be enough for there to be one expert in Sharia to give his opinion, but you will also need a biochemist, you may need a doctor, you may need a scientist who's a specialist in that particular field to give their input, and then there will be something that is similar to collective ijtihad. And this is why a lot of the ijtihad nowadays is being done by groups of scholars, by organizations, okay, like Majma' al-Fiqh and al-Rabita and so on, different organizations that come together, councils that bring together experts from different fields, especially when the ijtihad requires that kind of opinion. Okay? Okay, barakallah fiqh. So you have the opinions and the verdicts on a lot of these issues. Food, genetically modified food is one thing. We're talking about the possibility of cloning and human beings, right? Surrogate mothers, all of these new things that didn't exist before. This is where ijtihad comes in. Yeah. What else? Yes, brother.
Is there a difference between fatwa and ijtihad? What is the difference between fatwa and ijtihad?
No, ijtihad is just the process of using our reasoning and looking at the different evidence that exists to come up with a legal verdict. And that legal verdict is fatwa. So essentially, you're going through the process of ijtihad, okay, to provide or give and offer a fatwa on a certain issue. But that is, again, as we said, that is restricted to the scholars who have that capacity. Wallahu a'lam. So this is why, and this is sometimes also where some people get confused, there's a difference between a da'iyah and a mujtahid or a scholar. Even technically a mujtahid, for all practical purposes, scholars say that mujtahid is a very big word. Even some of the biggest scholars in the ummah may not be given that title of mujtahid, right? But we might say that some scholars have gotten to the level where they have the capacity to do ijtihad, but there are a lot of other types of du'at, callers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who may have a lot of knowledge about the deen and the sharia, but not the capacity to give or offer opinions on legal verdicts regarding fiqh and so on. What else?
Yeah, he asked you that he said something, he said when you forget you should remind you.
Okay, he forgot it seems.
He wasn't
He
from
was covering it.
about the Shia.
He was covering it.
Right. So basically what's happening there, again, if somebody asks, why are there these different groups?
The question was like this. You said that your book is supposed to bring us to unity.
Right.
You know? But at the end of the day, you've got Sunni, you've got Shia.
Correct.
And on top of that, you've got this four madhab, which they don't understand what it's all about.
Right.
Where's the unity in it? Yes?
Right. Well, for one, the lack of unity in the madahib is our fault because of our misunderstanding and the way we deal with it, unfortunately. At the same time, lack of unity when it comes to other things is we have to realize that even though it's a perfect book, it's a perfect system, but it is subject to imperfect interpretation by imperfect people. Because in the end, it is a text. It is a text. And the text sometimes has different interpretations. Some of those different interpretations are acceptable. And we gave the example of the madahib. The simplest example you can give to people, the hijab and the niqab. Very simple. And eye-opening as well. So, same idea. You claim that it is the case. What does the Quran say? Hijab or niqab? What does the Sunnah say? Well, different interpretations. Guess what? They're both acceptable. They're both permissible. They're both religiously sanctioned. And the one who prefers the niqab should not criticize the one who wears the hijab, and the one who wears hijab should not criticize the one who wears niqab. End of story. Very simple. Okay? Flexible. By the way, some hijabis become niqabis later on. Some niqabis become hijabis later on. Okay? Very flexible. Alhamdulillah. Okay? And acceptable. This is an example where both interpretations are acceptable. There are examples where there are unacceptable interpretations. So it's not for anyone to just say, oh, okay, open to interpretation, great. This is the way I want to interpret the Quran. This is called playing around. Whereas خُذْهَا بِقُوَّةٍ خُذِ الْكِتَابَ بِقُوَّةٍ. No, that's very different. Having different interpretations based on solid evidence, genuine scholars giving those different interpretations is very different than any Joe Schmo coming and saying, oh, I'm just going to interpret according to my whim. No, that's not the way it works. Anything else? Before I take the collection of mics off. Yes, brother.
You just said that Imam Shafi, when he went to for praying Fajr, so Imam was
grave of Imam Abu Hanifa.
Respect, he didn't pray the
Qunut.
Yeah? But I mean, if in there,
Because Imam Abu Hanifa did not used to pray.
yeah, no. For example, what I want to say that if for example, in Hanafi Mazhab, we shouldn't pray. We are praying the Qunut during the witr, yeah.
Correct.
But I mean, how it is like, if out of respect, he just, I mean, for example, in his opinion.
In his opinion, Fajr requires Qunut.
Yeah.
As Abu Hanifa did not, when he was praying there, out of respect for his opinion, he modified his salah to pray like a Hanafi, for all practical purposes. He didn't do the Qunut, which he usually does. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it, but
So if it was reversed, hypothetically it cannot be because Imam Abu Hanifa died before. And Imam Shafi'i is the student of Imam Malik, and Imam Malik came after Imam Abu Hanifa. So, but just reverse it hypothetically, Imam Abu Hanifa is praying at Imam Shafi'i's grave, he would pray the Qunut in the Fajr. Understand? So he's just following the opinion of the other Imam out of respect.
how is it? Because both of them, they are sure that this is.
This is why, brother. This shows you that when he says, this is my opinion about what is right, it doesn't mean that it invalidates my salah. It's not about invalidating. It's just about, this is what I believe is correct. This is the way he used to pray it. This is the way he interpreted the evidence. But he respects other scholars' opinions because the evidence may point to this opinion or that. And there are a lot of reasons why scholars may interpret that evidence sometimes differently. So this kind of strict interpretation, whereby they do not respect the other opinion, is what caused all of the problems that happened in the ummah with regards to the madahib, all of the disunity that we see, and so on and so forth. If Muslims understood their religion properly, they would not build another masjid because of a different madhab. That's lunacy. It's ridiculous. But there is ta'assub, there's a fanaticism in the following of these different madahib. They would have realized, especially in Muslim minority countries, that being together as a community and praying in one masjid is more important than strictly following the Hanafi madhab or the Shafi'i madhab or the Maliki madhab. I think it is a sunnah to say Ameen in the salah. And so do the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis and the Malikis. When I went to the Hanafi masjid, I said Ameen, but that's because I forgot. Okay? And everybody, I felt everybody wanted to do something because there was silence and I was the only one saying Ameen after the Imam, right? Had I remembered, okay, I won't say Ameen.
Which country?
What's the big deal? No, one of the Arab countries. But the masjid, that masjid was predominated by Hanafis. So they don't say Ameen. I forgot. Had I remembered, I wouldn't have said it. Okay, what's the big problem? Did it invalidate my prayer?
No, it's only now.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say you're praying salah and okay, it's 4 rak'ahs, right? You're praying the salah, you prayed the first rak'ah, you read Fatiha and then you read the small surah. Second rak'ah, you read Fatiha, you forgot to read a short surah or a long surah for that matter, whatever your preference. And then the third rak'ah, you only read Fatiha, fourth rak'ah, you only read Fatiha. What would you do? So you forgot to read after Al-Fatiha and the second rak'ah. What's the verdict? Sujood sahu. Okay, any other opinion?
Saying that even if you didn't read it, just Fatiha is sufficient.
You wouldn't do sajid sahu. Okay? How many think it invalidates the prayer?
No.
Doesn't invalidate. Alhamdulillah. Reading the short surah is a sunnah. It's not even wajib. You don't have to do even sujood sahu. You forgot it, it's okay. It's a sunnah. Saying Ameen is the same. What's the big deal?
No, what I want actually to know is for witr.
In your opinion.
Okay, sorry.
In the Hanafi opinion. I agree with you, by the way.
Yeah.
I agree. Qunut is for witr.
Because I also did actually a bit of research, and many scholars saying that actually in a witr is actually more opinion is more stronger than.
I agree. I also agree. I understand. But that's why I'm saying this is where we respect that difference of opinion and that difference of interpretation. And by the way, there are a lot of reasons that happens. It's not because the scholar wants to say something different. Give you an example. Imam al-Shafi'i dearly loved his Sheikh, and his Sheikh was his Imam Malik. And Imam Ahmad loved Imam al-Shafi'i. And they all benefited from each other. But here Imam al-Shafi'i now is coming up with a different madhab. Does he dislike Imam Malik? Then why did he come up with a different madhab? He doesn't like Imam Malik. Since he came up with a different, why doesn't he follow him?
On his opinion.
Then he dislikes him.
No.
Modern mentalities speak like this. Oh, you didn't follow all of the Hanafi madhab? You don't like Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Shafi'i started his own madhab. Because he disliked Imam Malik. He revered Imam Malik.
You're confusing the politics with it.
No. It's about what he is going to be asked on the Day of Judgment. He became a mujtahid. he believes the evidence says otherwise, and he's entitled to his opinion. Has nothing to do with love or lack of love, or like or dislike. Nowadays, that's not the way it is.
People think it's like politics. That's why they're thinking that there's...
No, it's just stupid. And I've witnessed conversations like this, where somebody, disagreed with one opinion of one scholar, not even one of the imams, and immediately the guy was like, you hate him. Subhanallah, what kind of a mentality is this? Because he disagreed with one opinion of his, is it wahi? There's only one person that you cannot go against, and that is the Prophet ﷺ. As Imam Malik said, everyone may be disagreed with. Everyone, including the Imams of the Madahib, except the one in this grave. And he was talking about the Prophet ﷺ. It's very clear. There should not be reason for quarrels and wars and battles between the different Madahib. Huh? The what? What's taksub? Don't tell me it's an Arabic word that I don't know as well.
It's an Arabic word.
It's an Arabic. Oh no! Please tell me, what is it now?
You said it just now.
What? Ta'assub.
So,
Brother, please, you left out a whole letter. The ayn. Ta'assub. Yes. Here they say ta'assub? In Malay? Subhanallah. How do they spell it? T-A-K. Oh my God. Because they turn the ayn into a hamza, right?
Actually, ta'assub.
So they say taksub
Actually,
with a K. Right. This is a big problem because you are changing the letter, right? From the ayn to the hamza. So technically you change the letter. So you say ta'sub like that. You don't pronounce the K, right?
yeah.
So how do you say it, Shaib?
Taksub.
Taksub. Okay.
so
Good to know.
actual-
Good to know. It's actually ta'assub. Right. Same meaning?
I
Identical?
was born, they taught me like that in Taksub.
But it's identical meaning.
Yes.
Okay. Fanaticism.
Yes.
Fanatic. Okay.
Taksub.
Good to know. Barakallah. Yes. Blind following. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you just said that you cannot force everybody to follow one mazhab or to accept one thing. When I
This turned into a conversation about madahib, even though the topic was, right, the Islam, the misunderstood religion, and the fact that it is flexible, but at the same time it is changing in the divine source. Go ahead, brother. Yes, tell me
say
now.
that you cannot force everybody to follow one
A certain madhab.
certain mazhab.
Okay. Go ahead.
You cannot force everybody to follow certain mazhab. But he said, the Prophet ﷺ said that his follower will be divided up to
73 groups.
73. That only one will go to heaven. So,
Correct. This does not apply to the madahib.
but he said we cannot follow one.
This does not apply to the madahib. Meaning, I didn't want to go into more detail, but I might have to. There are three types of people. Sometimes they mention two, but I mentioned to you three. The mujtahid, and these are very few, and you might say you can count them on your fingers. The one who has capacity to do ijtihad for the ummah, for himself and the ummah. Okay? This is a mujtahid. Very few. Most people in the ummah today are of the second or third category, which is al-muqallid, the one who imitates a certain madhab, does not have the capacity to judge or understand the Islamic evidence for himself or for the ummah. Okay? So most Muslims today are of this category, muqallid. They follow a certain madhab. But even for the muqallid, if it is shown to them abundantly, in an abundantly clear fashion, that that opinion in their madhab is weak, they can follow the stronger opinion, no problem. You don't have to follow the madhab of Malik or the madhab of Ahmad ibn Hanbal as if it is the sunnah. No. Clear? No ta'assub. So you have the mujtahid and you have the muqallid, and then you also have the third category, which is al-muttabi'. And this applies to students of knowledge who can discern and understand the Islamic evidence and judge for themselves, not for the ummah. Judge for themselves. Okay? This is what we call al-ittiba', darajat al-ittiba'. Okay? So in this way we would say there are these three categories. When a person, a muqallid, imitates a madhab, he's doing so because he's essentially given the responsibility of following the sunnah to this imam. You see what I'm saying, brother?
Yeah.
So on the day of judgment, he did not have enough knowledge to discern what is the sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, what is the legal verdict. He's following the madhab with the idea that this madhab shows me what the legal verdict is and what the sunnah says. You see what I'm saying? That's the idea. It's not that they will be held accountable because they were not able to discern or to understand or to study the different verdicts and the different evidence based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran or in the Sunnah. He may be accountable when, as I told you in the example, where it becomes abundantly clear that that opinion is weak, is against the majority of the opinion of the other opinions and of the sunnah of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Then he may be held accountable because he practiced ta'assub to the madhab on account of following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the madhab's imam was only trying to follow the sunnah anyway. Clear? Anything else?